Welcome country. So we're meeting on the traditional lands of the Ghana people, where their culture and history flourishes on for many generations. We pay our respects and acknowledge their elders past, present, and emerging. Same issue as last time. So welcome everyone to the Adelaide Microsoft IT Pro Community August 2025 Meetup. We're your hosts. If you've not met us before, I'm Andrew O. Young, a lead co-pilot and security architect at InfoMotion, and I'm also a Microsoft MVP in security and M365. That's a QR code to my LinkedIn, but yeah, we'll just reach out afterwards and we can connect and all that.
Afternoon all, I'm Shahan. I'm also Microsoft MVP in security, specializing in identity access management, Defender, and Intune device management. That's my QR code for my link tree, so you can find out about me and pretty much everywhere in Teams. In LinkedIn, my blog is emsroute.com and even X as well. I'm also working as an architect in the identity and access management side of things at Bastion Technology Services.
Nice. I would also update mine to a link tree, except mine's a hard-coded image. And I need to figure out where the original slide is. Yeah. Alrighty. Thanks to sponsors, so Microsoft for providing the venue and the equipment and so on. Systematech for keeping the meetup group going for however many years it's been. And just from ourselves, food, drinks, and our time and love for the community that makes an effort. Okay. So yeah, we are on an out of band schedule this time. So there have been a bunch of updates and events and stuff. One event that was just happened this week was the Discovery Day for Copilot and Agents. You might recognize some familiar faces from Microsoft Adelaide in the crowd there, as well as some bigger names from interstate as well, and just a cheeky little photo down there of some of the attendees. There was an agent hackathon at the end of it, so it's a good time had by all. But yeah, I look forward to more of these kind of style events. We may even have to run them ourselves just to get them happening. Right, so with what's happening, new financial year, new objectives and strategies. So Microsoft has decided to restructure both internally and externally facing. So with the products, and we just spoke about this outside, there are going to be three main categories in terms of the, I guess, skilling, the learning, the sales, I guess. But from the MCAP, so the Microsoft Customer and Partner Solutions event last month, we now see AI Business Solutions being the joint entity of modern work and business applications. So everything M365, Dynamics 365, Power Platform, Copilot, Copilot Studio, that's all AI Business Solutions. And then similarly for cloud and AI platforms, that is Azure, infrastructure, data, AI, app innovation, and so on, all bundled up. And you'll see the word frontier appearing everywhere. That's just where we're headed. So everything is going to be AI and agent focused in the next or the near future. And security kind of stays the same. It's going to be threat protection, data security, and everything in between that, from identity, devices, and so on. But way too long on that slide. So what's new in AI? I'm sure everyone saw this news drop a couple of weeks back, but OpenAI has dropped GPT-5. And the unprecedented thing was Microsoft decided to release that alongside Microsoft Copilot, Microsoft 365 Copilot, Microsoft Copilot Studio, Azure AI Foundry, all have access to the latest GPT-5 model, more or less. I think previously when the 4 model dropped, a lot of people were complaining, oh, there's discrepancies, it's a different model. That's out of the way now. It's all the same underlying model. There might be slight variants, as we'll see in the next image here. So on the left here, that's what we had prior to last fortnight. And on the right here, you might recognize this slide, but we've now got GPT-5 available in Copilot or M365 Copilot, and there is a sub-variant of what is known as a model router. being able to switch between different large language models behind the scenes. So what GPT-5 does in Copilot is, if your prompt comes in and it's very brief or basic, or there's just a few words, a simple question, it's going to route that through to a higher throughput model version of the model. Whereas if it's a longer paragraph, or you've got a very verbose prompt, it's going to hand it off to a deeper reasoning style GPT-5. But this doesn't derail the fact that there's still a researcher agent, which is tuned to do proper deep researching. So it spends 10, 15 minutes, where this might spend an extra 5 minutes. So you got good, best, better kind of approach. Okay, M365. We do finally say goodbye to Microsoft Stream. That was the kind of video dumping ground for all our Teams recordings, the screen recordings we wanted to do. So that is now merged with Clipchamp. If you haven't seen Clipchamp, it's video and audio editing program. And sneak peek to the upcoming kind of homepage for Clipchamp. So you'll be able to create and edit from the one page. And I do believe there are some features from the premium version of Clipchamp rolling down to the licensed one that you may get. Viva Engage public content's available in M365 Copilot, so you can ask Copilot about stuff that is in Viva Engage, if you are using Viva Engage, of course. So any highlights and topics should show up there. And I think this one was just yesterday, but there is a new surveys agent. You notice that's on the Frontier program, which is essentially preview, in a nicer way of saying it. But yeah, just an AI agent that sits in front of surveys. So you'll take care of all the questions, the responses, and the analytics and all that. So stay tuned for how that develops. Oh. I had it black out. All right. So Exchange, if anyone's still using Exchange Server on premises, 2016, 2019, you will know that it's coming to end of life, along with Windows 10 and a lot of other products, as part of the modern life cycle of these services. So Microsoft are now announcing that they will provide an up to 6-month extended security update, just to help you get from that version to the subscription edition of Exchange. Sorry, it's the next bit there. So yeah, it's not so much of a you can stay on versions 2016, 2019. It's a we need you to move. This will help you kind of get there if you still need some more time. Ideally, you'd move to server subscription edition or Exchange Online, provided you're not in like a heavily regulated scenario where you need to keep your emails on-prem or compliant. A similar thing is happening for Skype for Business Service 2015, 2019. If you're still using that, I imagine most people would have moved off to Teams by now, but there are still use cases that require on-premise. Not talking about something? No, not really. No. All right. Entra ID, well, Entra Suite, but in particular, there is now a new Excel workbook that gives you a kind of a plan on how to deliver it or deploy it in a customer site. And alongside that, if you've forgotten about all the new things and features in Entra Suite, Microsoft had a summer camp on last week. Yeah, and it's now on demand, so you can catch it on YouTube. So all of the new features across identity protection, governance, global secure access, and so on. Keep moving this along to Microsoft Intune. So Mac OS operating systems, they now also get local admin password service. Service. Yeah, so previously that was predominantly a Windows thing, so having a local admin account where the password rotates, so no one can ever manage. Yeah, so that's cool. We're getting more love across the different device types out there. Same time, we've got wildcard support for endpoint privilege management, so the admins will be able to put in whatever wildcards they like, just to make their lives easier to filter and apply new policies and so on. And device cleanup capabilities with per platform rules. So Windows, iOS, Android, Linux, they've all got customizable kind of instructions on what happens when you need to wipe a device, for example. And Windows and devices, Windows 365 we've probably had a session or two on this in the past. So that's a cloud PC. It's similar to an Azure Virtual Desktop or VM that you would use for remote desktop services. So what the reserve part does is it's kind of it's on standby. So it's in case of emergency, say you've lost a device or a server's fallen over, you can kind of turn this on and you've got a desktop ready to go just in the cloud. So that's coming to private preview soon. Yeah.
Will it also include all the software installed and all those things? It's a kind of a copy of your entire PC.
Yeah. So you'd
Copy,
not a hard
but
copy,
you
no.
can prepare that image
Okay.
and keep it on the W365 ready to go. And if you switch it on, basically it will be charged.
It will be okay.
Yeah, because it's a VM that you're using in Azure.
Okay.
So reserve will be on standby mode. Yeah.
So ideally, you'd install all the applications.
Yeah.
It's not image per se because each, I guess, cloud PC is
Yes.
individual.
Earlier, like I personally used to create those ghost files to just
Yeah.
make all the software installed in one shot only. So just in that context, I'm just asking this.
Yeah, and I guess if you're using the enterprise version, you can manage it through Intune, and kind of it's a bit more robust that way. Just another reminder: Windows 10 end of life coming up. But yes, you can get extended security updates for up to 3 years if you're willing to pay for that. With the Windows 11. Security. You want to talk about any of this? No.
That's fine.
But yeah, Microsoft Sentinel Data Lake. That's a new term. So previously we had. You're probably more familiar with log analytics workspaces. So Sentinel did come with one, I believe, included.
Yeah. So cool. With the information I know, so log analytics workspace is where the data or the logs will be streamed from for your SIEM or for your security events management. So with the data lake, it's gives you more space and more history. Like rather than 90 days, you can go up to I think 720 days or something. Sorry, 12 years. Sorry, yeah. There's a comparison over there, and you can adopt more stuff like Python rather than just KQL queries to get the events and for your playbooks and workbooks and stuff like that. So I think as far as I read, it's more cost-wise. This is more friendly as well. So I think it's in public preview at the moment, or it was just announced just a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, and there can be more and more regulations coming in. You need to keep your logs for this many days or this many years. So this would definitely support that capability. Yeah.
Artifacts, other related information.
Yeah. Especially your firewalls will throw out a lot of logs for larger organizations, for an example, where log analytics cannot keep for a long time because of the cost factor.
The trade-off was you've got cheaper storage and ingestion, but
Yeah.
the queries may be slower because it's a lower tier.
Correct.
Storage,
Yeah.
moving slower.
Yeah. So this will be very brand new and can see a lot of good benefits for the customers.
In the data which is going to be stored in which format? Like are they going to be stored in?
If he did, so the logs will be logs. The files that
The files only, right?
Not the files. So let's say if you sign into a service in
Correct.
365, so that sign-in information will be gone into that. Will be transferred to the log analytics workspace.
It's a kind of a plain text or
Plain text. You can
plain
say
text?
that's plain text, and you use KQL or the custom query language
on that plain text.
Yeah.
Oh,
to query your tables according to who logged into this device at what time, from
Okay.
which IP, whatever.
so based on that plain text, the query will basically segregate the information or something like that. Further.
Yeah, and you have your tables to query those stuff accordingly. Yeah.
There's a security copilot calculator. Very handy tool if you're trying to figure out how much it's going to cost, because it's still your piece of string, right? So the calculator sort of looks like this, and it's not just using the Security Copilot chat interface, it's also the embedded experiences across Defender, Intune, Entra, and Purview. So how many people are going to be using it across those different admin centers, because they might not all have the same access or roles. And then if you've got to hook into any kind of logic apps for automation, so it gives you a better idea versus how many secure compute units do you think you'll use? Well, I don't know. So that will give you a better idea. It's still early days, I guess. So we might get better pricing, but I'd make no comment on that. Cool. And just recently updated, there's a new blueprint from the Australian Signals Directorate. Part of their secure cloud approach. There's now just advice around Copilot. So in the compliance space, so how to secure your data, how to secure your endpoints and identities, and then what to do from a data security point of view, so retention, labels, and so on. More security training. We've mentioned this many times in the past, but there is Ninja training across the different Microsoft Defender and security products. That's all self-paced, and you get certificates of participation at the end with a free assessment over forms, I believe it is, and a cloud-native app protection policy book. For partners in the room and on the call, I don't know how many there are, but there is the Copilot specialization for partners is now live. I think they made some slight tweaks, but expect a very high target in terms of skilling and customer success to be able to attain that one. There are always new applied skills, so check out the applied skills poster. Not as many new certifications, but if you wanted to figure out which kind of direction you want to take, the certifications poster will give you a rundown of all the different exams and certifications you can take. The SC 401, so that's the information protection admin, they've had some slight tweaks on that just to gear it more towards AI and data security posture management. And if you're interested in agents, there is what you call them, like it's not really a repo, is it? But on GitHub, there are spaces for the agents for beginners, as well as a Copilot developer camp. So you can start your journey in learning how to build agents from there. A lot of talking. Microsoft Learn student ambassadors. So any current students in tertiary education, they can actually sign up to this program. They come in on the left there. You join a Discord server, I believe, and you can start working towards community-styled events, hackathons, user groups, whatever it may be. And once you recognize, you become a beta and then hopefully a gold. So then you get some cool swag and you get a foot in the door to some other Microsoft programs as well, such as the MVP program. There is a Microsoft Student Accelerator meetup, but it's been a while since they've hit Adelaide. So if you're keen and you know people in education that would be interested in this, let's have a conversation around where and who and when, I guess. Quickly go through the different user groups around Microsoft in Adelaide. So if you haven't seen these, sign up on the Meetup app, do a search for Adelaide and Microsoft. You probably find all of them. Just a quick note on the last one there. It's a Discord server. We haven't quite nutted out anything yet, but I've suggested we can do spotlights on that just as a virtual meetup instead.
Please.
Yeah, sure.
The last slide.
It's all right. We'll send these. Well, the slides and all that will be made available afterwards, so don't worry. Yeah. All right. There's a lot of events, and it's really small text because there's so many events. But yeah, ignoring the first two because they've already happened. There is a event tomorrow, actually. You want to talk about that one?
Yeah, very briefly, I'll touch base. So it's ASA, Adelaide or Adelaide Sec. That's basically Australian Information Security Association. So they have their monthly meetups every month, of course. But they have the big event in Adelaide called Adelaide Sec, and in every state that they have all the other security events as well, same as Adelaide Sec. So that's happening tomorrow. I'm not sure whether the registrations are still open or not. But yeah, it's basically lots of talks around AI, most probably compliance, GRC side of things, governance, risk, and compliance, and cybersecurity as a whole. So that will be happening tomorrow. Yeah.
And then there's a couple of online webinars. There's an MCP bootcamp for APAC. It's coming out of the Microsoft Reactor, that's online. And the month of September, there's a VS Code Dev Days event. Nothing happening in Australia, though there's still late registrations for that. But that's the thing. And I guess that one there, the Microsoft Learn Zero to Hero. That's the September kind of headline. But I guess the reason why we are having our user group today is because Shahan was actually part of the August lineup.
Yeah, it's pretty much a online virtual sort of not a meetup, but anyone can present. I think MVPs or they have a selection criteria, but yeah. So you can basically talk about technology. It doesn't have to be specific to security, but it can be on anything. So I spoke beginning of this month, yeah, and Andrew going to talk next month, and and Anto, who will be who's our guest speaker today, is speaking on end of next month as well. So
is like a specific registration? I don't believe I saw one for that.
Yeah.
You just have to join the tech community.
I think that's all.
Drop the link for that as well if it's not there, but I think that should lead you to it. And then a whole lot of other events. I'll grab that back. There is a AI hackathon for public sector, which is exclusive to, I believe, defense. So there's probably no one in the room here. And then a whole bunch of developer events happening. One in Perth, one in Adelaide, and one in Brisbane. And there's a couple of Workplace Ninja Australia conferences. Unfortunately, that's only in Sydney and Melbourne. So if you're lucky, you can get to that. And then there's Microsoft's flagship conference, Ignite, in San Francisco, end of November-ish. Okay, and for us, we're still kind of deciding on who and what in the next couple of months. But we've got some ideas coming up. But if you're interested in presenting, please, from February onwards, just hit us up. You can use the form if you really want to. But at any point, if you want to showcase anything or, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes or 20 to 40, just feel free to reach out. Or if anyone wants certain topics to be presented on, tell us and we can find someone, or if not, deliver on it ourselves. This is still going. In case you missed it, we are part of a podcast, Out of Band. It's a Microsoft security podcast, so you might recognize these faces. But yeah, we are on pretty much most of the platforms that have podcasts available. So yeah, Spotify, Apple, YouTube, etc. So keep an eye out for that. And just a quick plug for the Discord community server. It's the SA, or South Australia IT Connect. So this is just for anyone in IT in SA Adelaide who wants to join in and have random chats around anything to do with IT, or even not IT, but it's just a safe place. All right, I'm gonna stop talking. So we've got Anthony Porter joining us today to present on Microsoft 365 desired state configuration. And I'll hand over to you now, Anto, if you want to try and take control of the sharing, and hopefully we won't break.
We'll see what happens, right?
That's a good start. Over to you.
Look at that. Look, thank you everybody for showing up either in person or remotely. I do apologize that I was not able to make it in person this time around, but I'm sure that I will try and tee something up in future if all the stars align. But yeah, once again, thank you everybody for showing up to this. Once again, I've run this presentation a couple times and it's had a lot of, interest. So I figured why not, rehash this one back out, just because I think it's one of those underutilized, tool sets that everybody has available to them to be able to kind of, look into how to fix some I guess, known issues within the M365 space. Let me see if all these transitions work, but before I get too much further into it, who am I? My name's Anthony Porter. I'm a cloud security architect at Canon Business Services. I've been in the IT industry for about 16 years, where for the past, I'd say 6 of them, it's been specifically Microsoft Cloud focused. I started off in managed services, or at least cloud managed services, before moving to more of a infrastructure focused consultancy, before then transitioning more to security focus. So that's where I guess I originated from in that space. Everything before that was purely brick and mortar. I have a blog, managed to secure a domain recently of securingm365.com. I'm active on LinkedIn. QR code is not phishing. I want you to be aware. I feel like I have to state that every time now, but QR is not phishing. It is the one you generate from LinkedIn. So you are free to scan that if you need. Once again, I also share most of my bits and pieces on GitHub. And as I'm sure it's already been plugged a couple of times, I'm also the third head in the podcast Out of Band. So look, let's get into it. And let's set the scene of things, right? So you might be an administrator currently managing multiple M365 tenancies for a multinational corporation, or managing multiple M365 tenants within a managed services style engagement. And your job is to ensure consistency across all of the tenants, across all regions, across all offices, and provide almost a baseline of configuration of all of those. Or you're a compliance officer and you've got to adhere to strict regulatory requirements, like internal policies in like the financial industry or institutions, or you need to ensure that the M365 configuration that you have configured complies to avoid penalties and maintain trust within the organization as well as public. Or you're an IT manager trying to restore an M365 environment quickly after a disaster because you got hit by a cyber threat, and you want to minimize the amount of downtime and loss of data within your environment. I could keep going. You might be a part of the consultancy side of things, and you might have several sets of projects that you run very often, whether it be like a startup or some sort of baseline of configuration. And the manual time that it takes to do that, often or not, is time consuming, and you want a way to speed that up. All of these are genuinely things that I think have a gap within the environment, and which is why I was essentially started looking around for a bit of a tool set. I'll take it back to an example I have is I was a part of an IRAP assessment. I did the infrastructure and the security associated to that. For those that aren't aware, an IRAP assessment is essentially a set of controls across ISM, which we need to essentially either secure against or then advise against to ensure that the security of this environment within its borders is to a high quality, and that is done independently. The manual steps of that in my situation was easily about 250 hours of configuration and documentation. Went off with a hitch. We got a big thumb up. All of a sudden, because it went well, we wanted to do it again, but we had no way of actually being able to use that IP. And essentially we had to scope almost another, several hundred hour, which isn't great. I obviously then went, right, there's got to be a solution to this. And I started Googling around and I started looking around, and I stumbled across M365 DSC. So just jumping into it, what is DSC? So for those unaware, DSC is, I think as Andrew already mentioned, desired state configuration. So it's a management platform using PowerShell, and it ensures components of your IT infrastructure are configured correctly and remain consistent. So, reading through the lines, desired, be it what you want, the state of something, and configuration. So once again, what M365 DSC obviously looks to do is, or where the challenges of M365 are, is it's difficult to enforce technical change management. So you might have a change management process. If you don't, you should probably look up ITIL. But the idea behind that is that you need to be able to, say that you're going to make a change and then actually do it, show evidence and so on. And not only that, there's many portals. There's SharePoint, there's Teams, there's Entra. Across the board, there's a lot. Not only that, there is still a lack of configuration backup. Now M365 backup is there. That's great for SharePoint. That's great for Exchange and whatnot. But there's still nothing to prevent your configuration from disaster. So if you were to have your environment taken over and they went and decided, you know what, you don't need any Intune policies in this place, and they hit delete, there's nothing stopping them, firstly, apart from, if they've got all the GAs, but there's nothing that you have in place that backs that up traditionally either. And really, moving forward with a more security mindset, configuration of code as code is almost that, effective, efficient way to be able to work towards having a more repeatable, more secure, identify gaps, and also auditability in that space as well. So highlighting what M365 DSC is, very much is the following. It's an open source initiative led by Microsoft engineers, but then maintained by the community. So once again, free for everybody. It's on GitHub. The idea of it is it allows you to define M365 tenant configuration across the board. So that allows you to automate deployment and monitor configuration in a very high level. The idea of that core function is, configuration management to ensure, consistent configuration across multiple tenants or reduce error and improve reliability. There's also compliance and auditing, so maintaining compliance within organizational policies or crucial, operational integrity and risk management. So do you have a backup for this? Yes, we do now. Once again, disaster recovery. If you have a backup and a disaster occurs, you then have that ability to restore, but then also the ability to back up an entire tenant itself. So that's across Teams, Intune, Purview, Defender, Entra, and the list goes on. Breaking down, I guess, the 6 hexagons in this case, or at least highlighting what they are, is automate. So that's your ability to streamline repetitive, streamline repetitive tasks and reduce the manual intervention required. Then there's export. So once again, being able to push. Now, export is obviously being able to pull configuration to easily replicate. Then there's sync. So that's your ability to maintain uniform configuration across multiple tenancies. Then there's the assess. So that's your ability to evaluate your configuration against any specific compliance gaps using, blueprints, for example. Then there's monitor and report, which kind of go hand in hand, but one is your ability to then be able to track configuration changes and alert accordingly. And then reports, who's done a massive project and wants to be ability to be able to say, this is everything we did. Reporting is the function. So once again, each of them having a very specific function, but creating almost a well-rounded solution to several problems. So once again, breaking that down, let's focus on automation. So the idea of automation is using PowerShell desired state configuration, obviously leveraging the PowerShell modules itself for DSC. It enables admins to essentially write complete definitions of a desired tenant. So that could be anything from allowing you to define the configuration of a specific workload. So that could be SharePoint, Exchange, security and compliance, which in this case is Purview, Teams, so on and so forth. But then also the ability to automate the deployment of these configurations. So, practical example of that would potentially be your ability to put together a set of configuration profiles or setting catalogs within Intune, or define your Defender for Office 365 anti-malware policy. You might have a couple that you want to define, be able to define that in code, or even just setting up sensitivity labels in Microsoft Purview. As someone who's, taken quite a interest in Purview, given the rise of requirement for data security, the Purview portal to date is a very manual process. And that's something that I've gone, well, I'm a bit lazy and I need to find a way that I can speed this up in future. So Purview is one of those key examples where I see this most beneficial. the ability then to be able to define that configuration file and then have it be a unified single definition file is one of the other benefits. The idea of that is that you can have all of your like workloads, such as your Exchange, your Teams, your SharePoint, your Entra, security groups, and so on, all within the same file. So you don't need to have split definitions for split files. You can have one for a specific tenancy, which captures everything, or you can split it out into small workloads for, projects, for example. But the ability to be able to then have that, I guess, capability in itself is one of those benefits that I see heavily. I guess writing that definition itself kind of, looks super complicated, but really it is not. It aligns, being able to essentially define your definition is part of what you're trying to achieve. So in this case, you have the ability to align, technical aspects or support business goals. The snippet I have here it literally just demonstrates what would be a JSON file in which is the AV policy. So that is the ability to have true and false values across the board, what specific information you would like. This isn't the AV policy, this is a compliance policy. So this is looking at Intune compliance, such as, is your firewall on, is your AV enabled, what's the lowest version of Defender, what's the name of the policy via display name, and so on. The idea of then being able to leverage existing sources such as the ASD, which also utilize M365 DSC, allows you to, focus that a bit more. Just highlighting it just for, I guess, anybody, that is the policy for Intune compliance. Once again, being able to define the trues and falses against, should this be enabled or disabled, and then also the intricate details of, when should your password expire, if any. By all means, this is fairly generic and out of the box, but the idea is that you would have a JSON. Now that would sit within a larger definition file. That could be sit with all of the rest of Entra, that could sit with all of Teams and so on. But the idea is that is something you can define and then push into a tenancy. Now, if you're like me and who is not the greatest at coding, the export function comes into play. Now, once again, not the greatest at coding, I would heavily recommend looking up the export.m365dsc.com portal. Gives you a GUI which kind of spits out the code for you. But if you are a bit savvier than me, there is the export-m365 DSC configuration command within PowerShell, which also then allows you to go through a bit of a similar GUI process, but define what you are looking to export from a tenancy. Now, the idea of that is that you might only want to touch on certain sections of Entra ID, in which this case they still haven't updated the naming convention. Don't shoot the messenger. But the idea is if you only want, security groups or information regarding MFA, you can go and select that. And then if you only also want to include bits and pieces from Exchange and Teams, once again, you tick the boxes, and it provides a generate code button right in the top, which allows you to essentially dump that into your PowerShell, and you're good to go. But yeah, once again, personally, go to the portal if you're still playing around, wanting to know what you can and can't do. But if you are a bit savvier than I am, by all means, go through the PowerShell module. Once again, just highlighting that in a bit more detail, you can see across the board, there is, all of the different sets of, I guess, platforms that you can download from or export from, Exchange, Intune, the M365 portal, security and compliance, in this case, is Purview, SharePoint's Teams. It's even got some information in regards to Power Platform, not as much as I would like, but bits and pieces across the board, which are helpful. And across the top, you've also got section mode, which is default, and the authentication. Now, section mode allows you to kind of say none, and it'll untick everything. Full, it'll tick everything. And then a light, I believe, in which it'll select bits and pieces it believes you'd want. But once again, select none, select what you want, and then go from there. Authentication. Now, that is probably the most confusing part of this whole thing. And I will show via its own dedicated slide the breakdown of that. So it's going to get confusing, but essentially you do have different types of credentials that you can use, whether it be user-based credentials, service principals with certificate thumbprints or certificate paths or app secrets or managed identities. Across the board, essentially, each of them do have their set of capabilities and limitations. I personally default to service principal with certificate thumbprint, purely due to the fact that it is the most secure, but also the most capable across all the modules. But once again, if you're just looking to, give it a go, credentials is there. Why I wouldn't recommend credentials is because in the push process, it is a unattended process. So the catch to that is that your account cannot have MFA enabled. And I know that's the big scary thing. That's why please use service principal with certificate thumbprint. But in my opinion, if you are exporting, that is attended. So you can prompt MFA, go for your life. But if you are going to push something, at least go through the secure measures to be able to do so. Now, all of this, obviously, you can see there's a bunch of PowerShells across the board. What you can see there, though, is the PowerShell module essentially leverages Graph. Now, how that works is essentially in your tenancy, you would have an application called Microsoft Graph PowerShell. If your tenancy is from a while back, it's actually got a way longer name. But if you've got a fairly new tenancy, it is called Microsoft Graph PowerShell. But the idea is that you define, based on what is exported of that configuration, it'll say, hey, you need the resources of XYZ, and it'll ask for read permissions to export and read and write to push. But the idea is you would consent, you would need at least cloud app administrator or app administrator, or just global if you've got that, to be able to then export and import that information. But yeah, once again, you consent, you accept, you press go, and it starts downloading your configuration. And it really is that easy. And trust me, I'm not the best when it comes to coding in PowerShell. So if I can do it, I'm sure everybody else can as well. Synchronization. So, we've built our definition file. We've exported our entire tenant's configuration, for example, of what we would refer to now as our desired state for our organization. So this is where I guess we can start to up the ante with capability. So synchronization, so that's your ability to be able to keep multiple tenants synchronized. So that's the ability to export configuration from one tenancy and then allow almost a seamless application to another. So where that might be of benefit to you is potentially like a dev test migration, or dev prod migration, where you might have a set of configuration that you would need to replicate. And obviously that being done manually is a bit of a headache. But once again, being able to then maintain that, so the ability to ensure that all the services remain that, is one of those benefits that obviously has in place. So the clone or the sync is essentially just a export and then import process done on a repeat. I'll get into the CI/CD aspects of it a bit later, but the idea of it is quite simple. You have the ability to consistently ensure that your configuration of what you believe is the state can be pushed into the environment, maintaining stability, reliability, and that there is no drift in your configuration. Assessment. So the idea is that when you go through and you look at all your configuration, you have the ability to define a blueprint. Now, a blueprint, once again, it could be something like a ASD blueprint. So the idea is that you can define a set of controls associated to what you believe the state should be and why it should be that. So that could be your requirements for compliance within the industry, or enhancing reliability and performance, so that you ensure that your AV policy isn't set to this, so the endpoints don't have a bad day. Now, you can also then have the ability to generate discrepancy reports. So the idea of that is you have a blueprint of what would you believe the desired state should be and why, and then also your actual environment in which you'd be able to provide a report to say, actually, this is going, this isn't actually what we want it to be. You also have the ability to look at two tenancies and have them fight off and say, actually, these don't split between. So if you're going through the synchronization process and you actually want to know, hey, what keeps changing in our test environment that we keep having to push into prod, and why does prod keep changing? You do have the ability to look at a discrepancy report and look at those to be able to then say, actually, we do need to change that into test so we can stop pushing it into prod. Or vice versa, should it be in test in the first place? That obviously in terms of PowerShell is just test-M365 DSC configuration, which allows for you to look at those parameters. Creating the blueprint really is quite simple. It's quite intuitive in itself. For those that are savvy, I apologize if the color scheme is not great. I realize that now. But the idea is you would define a property name and the property value. So that would be, in this case, allow call forwarding to be true, forwarding to phone to be true. And the idea is that you can set a level of advisory. So L3 in this case would be information. It just appears white. It's a bit of you should probably look at this. This is why we have this in place. It could be, this is because this is best practice. L2 would be showing as warning. So the idea is that you should probably pay attention to this. Maybe it's something that was misconfigured and so on and so forth. And then L1, that's critical. So that's your, we are not adhering to compliance requirements anymore, and we're going to have a bad time if we get audited. So the idea is that you can set criticality, and that's through the triple hashtag, what the severity is, and then the comment. So we strongly recommend allowing call forwarding to be phone lines because I don't have any better reasons as to why. And I also don't know why you'd allow phone forwarding to as the, we would recommend. But for the lack of, that's what I put together. But putting it simple is that you have the ability now to export and import. You then have the ability to create a discrepancy report, but then you also have the ability to put context into what that is in the form of a blueprint. So essentially we're playing with the data, we're importing the data, we're exporting the data, we're looking at the data, and now we need a way to just monitor the data. So see what's happening in that space. That's obviously where monitor comes into place. So the idea of that is you have the ability to automatically detect drift in configuration. So the ability to confirm or at least ensure that crucial system integrity and stability based on what's set up in your environment, the ability to automatically detect drift itself, and then allows for you to also then automatically predefine actions associated to that drift. So the idea is that if you were to set something up in CI/CD, so we'll call it DevOps or GitHub, you do have the ability to define that if this drift does occur, reapply the setting back to what I want it to, no questions asked. I didn't say that you could do that, so on and so forth. The idea of that, obviously, automation, less manual handling, quicker, resolution time, and really you could just flag a alert to occur through one of your CI/CD platforms to say, hey, we saw this configuration drift. We should probably figure out what's, why this keeps changing, or, was it a change management? Should we change what our desired state should be, and so on and so forth. The ability then to be able to log all that information in auditing makes for a much easier process if you are going through an audit process, where right now, to date, it is fairly manual in terms of, can you please show me this for an assessment purpose? Where you can have that readily available. But then obviously, once again, just being able to notify your stakeholders via an email, for example, when a specific configuration is gone, or just automate a report to be pushed out so that you don't have to do anything. So once again, just highlighting that integration with DevOps, enhancing collaboration, streamlining workflows, utilizing the pipelines, notifying of automation occurring, notifying of drift, or just the monitoring process in general. So I mean, I think the default configuration which occurs is it'll check every 15 minutes. And then from that 15 minutes, it'll ensure that all the settings are as they should be. And if they are not, obviously it'll go through that process and automatically change anything. So you can just set it to audit. You can set it to automatically say no. What that looks like in terms of an event viewer point of view. So you can see here that M365 DSC does get its own under apps and service logs. The idea of that is when it flags as a potential warning in the system. Once again, this is run locally. You can run it through DevOps, but locally it can say, hey, the parameter here should be ensure, but it was actually, like the parameter name was ensure. The current value was absent when it should have been present. And the idea of that in my desired state configuration, local configuration manager, was that actually I wanted you to apply and monitor. So make sure that it's always there, always, so that I don't have to do anything when it moves away from what it should be. So we've obviously got the ability to monitor. As briefly mentioned, that reporting capability is kind of that other piece of the puzzle. So as I'm sure some of you might be aware, there is really no way that you can kind of have a global, this is what our configuration looks like in our environment. You know, this is all of our settings. This is all our policies. This is all our configuration within Intune, so on. This is who has what and so on. The idea of this is it gives you a really, really easy to use, you know, friendly approach to reporting. You can get it in CSV, Excel, JSON, and HTML. So you essentially have it in every format that you would want it, whether it be actionable or just, I guess, plain text for your knowledge, that essentially will enhance and speed up whether it be the presentation of data or at least just the clarity of what's in your environment. Once again, the role of that can be, you know, for compliancy purposes, or in my case, when I made mention of it, is like, you know, an IRAP process where it's like, okay, you said you created XYZ policy, you now said you set up this, show evidence. So rather than it being a chase my tail, go find it in the doc, I can just provide that document straight up, say, here you go, mate, that's everything you need to know, every policy, every name, I've made links to it in XYZ documentation, and just speed up the process just in general. Once again, that efficiency coming through, you know, it's a single command line, and it just genuinely streamlines the process itself. What that would then look like in terms of just, I've used the Excel and HTML in this case, is using a new M365 DSC report from configuration. You have the ability to choose the types. Once again, it's HTML, JSON, Excel, CSV, and then the ability to say where you want to push it, and also the PS1, which is your export itself. So you can see there, I've got the Excel representation of it, as well as a snippet of what it looks like in terms of HTML. So once again, being able to quickly speed run straight up to being able to provide a report, you know, showing evidence and so on, a lot easier. CI/CD, obviously, I will briefly touch on this because this is definitely not my area of expertise. But obviously, in this case, I feel like it is, for lack of a better, it's that continuous integration, continuous development. So the idea of that is it's essential practice for modern development. So whether that be application or any sort, I guess, enhances automation and efficiency in the deployment management process as well. It has integration directly with M365 DSC, which obviously improves that automation process and streamlines the deployment itself too. So yeah, once again, I will use the reference of Azure DevOps, but if you don't use Azure DevOps, you probably have heard of GitHub Actions as well. But then obviously the ability to have multiple teams, automate workflows, and ensure compliant continuous updates in that space. Once again, some of the general benefits, you know, accelerating the release cycle, minimizing risk of human error, because obviously the code sits in that platform, ensuring reliability, reducing manual intervention in terms of the pushing back of data, exporting of data, alerting, and so on. But really, it is the crucial element of maintaining, I guess, high quality software, or even just any sort of development in like a fast-paced environment. Now, obviously, I'm not the best when it comes to setting this up, but I don't have to be. AKO.ms, M365 DSC white paper, they actually put out a white paper. This is the end-to-end, your solution designs, it's the deployment process, it's the prerequisites itself to be able to get you know, everything up and running. It looks at what you need in terms of resources. So that would be, you know, DevOps, Key Vault, blob storage. But yeah, once again, it covers off bits and pieces such as the description and design, deployment process, the prereqs, creating that data itself. If you have any problems, there's the troubleshooting as well as, yeah, just once again, security enhancements to make sure that you are doing the best, I guess, secure, conscious configuration in that space. And once again, nobody wants to start anything from scratch. It's a real difficult way to go. As I briefly mentioned, the ASD actually have their own blueprints, which you can go and download right now. Blueprints, asd.gov.au. If you go through configuration, you can see that they themselves not only utilize this as a tool set, but then also give you aspects of what they say would be a blueprint for your environment to be, I guess, a specific security standard, ready to download. So the idea is it gives you instructions as to where that is. But once again, if you're looking for that starting point as to potentially an environment that you want to uplift, or a reference point as to what you would like to reflect your environment to look at. Once again, our blueprint asd.gov.au/configuration. You can see there are some limitations still in regards to what it can back up. Most of that will be in the, I guess, the underline mentions. So certain ASD ISO, hardening ISO, SSO plugins, sometimes that stuff needs to be configured manually, but really what that does save you just by downloading that is several hours to get you to that. And once again, it's got it across the board for your Purview, Exchange, Entra, so on and so forth. So I guess quickly wrapping up, only because I'm trying to stick to a time limit. Yeah, look, the idea is that M365 DSC, and I guess its key features is that configuration management, right? It's the insurance of your system settings, that they are always consistent across the organization or multiple organizations that you manage. And it's I guess the crucial element of being able to maintain that operational integrity within your business. Then there's obviously the process automation, me being, as advocate of automation, because I only want to do it as once and then try and make it easier the next time. It just reduces the manual workload significantly. So once again, if you're doing a project that's taken 200 hours of manual, you might be able to export that, keep it in a save file. And, if you do need to do it again in future, it might speed that up, 50, 60%, which then obviously makes your life a lot easier. It also allows for other, focus and strategic initiatives rather than being a repetitive task within your arsenal. Obviously, the security enhancements. So, being able to actually back up your configuration if a disaster was to occur, being able to quickly remediate that if there was a disaster to occur. It's just one of those very, I guess, unthought of benefits associated to that. And it does start to incorporate those industry best practices and strategies, such as having things as code ready to be deployed for scalability and whatnot as well. But yeah, once again, enhancing efficiencies and reliability, as well as bolstering the security. So protecting your data, maintaining compliance, and just reducing that risk overall. Look, that really is the short and easy of it. I know that we've got a bit of a split between remote and in person, but does anybody have any questions?
It seems very much similar to like what we do with the containers and all those things. Can I ask one basic question?
Yeah.
I think it would be quite basic. Hello. Hi, Anthony.
Hey, how you going?
Yeah, so I'm quite new to this particular topic, to be very frank. But what I am able to digest from whatever you have just represented is, it's this DSC is something kind of a mechanism by which you are going to extract certain configuration, and then you are going to import that configuration somewhere, and that will be maintained across the various environments of the application. That's what basically I got. Now, if I really compare this particular thing with the concept of containerization and all those things, then it seems very similar on a bird view level, to be very frank for me. So how they are different in nature? That's what my basic question is.
Yeah.
Or what different thing this DSC brings, which is not covered in that containerization concept and all those things.
So I think, no worries. No, great question. I think the idea of containerization sits more at like a lot, not a global level. I think the concept of containerization obviously does actually, covers it pretty completely. I think what I guess this is trying to, bridge that gap is that there is no containerization option for the Microsoft 365 platform. So there is no way that you can, bundle, package, and send off. There is kind of a lack in that tool set to be able to do that containerization. And this is essentially what I'm trying to, I guess, spread knowledge to be able to.
Now I get it. So basically, okay. Okay, so now I think I got it, that probably like we are just talking about that it might be the one system that you are talking about, that because here we are not talking about a normal web application or something like that. The platform itself we are talking about, and for that platform configuration to be exported and to be imported, that is where we are using this DSC. And where in this particular application there is no concept of containerization yet implemented or something like that, and that's why we require this DSC mechanism, something like that, right?
It's more like templating. It's more like templating
Okay,
rather than bundling.
Okay.
I think one of those. So if you were to containerize an application that sits within your like Azure, for example, obviously you'd need the underlying permissions to be able to access Azure. So that would be, RBAC, who gets access through to this subscription. That might be through security group association. That might be through a PIM function, for example. None of that, I guess, to date is easily backed up in your environment. So obviously that Azure subscription, you can obviously have it scale and I guess have that, redundancy in that space. But the platform which would then manage that subscription does not essentially have a out of the box backup function. So this looks at, I guess, what I believe you are referring to in like a more of an app itself, at more of the platform that manages access and control to that. Does that make sense?
Yep. Makes sense. Thank you.
No. It's a brilliant question. It's I think once again the concept of it is templating.
Yes. So that is what I'm trying to say, that the bottom line concept of everything is just crossing each other, basically, whether it is containerization or whether you are whatever we are discussing about the DSC or something like that. As this all things are under one ecosystem, which is the Microsoft or something like that, ultimately the fundamentals will remain same. The naming convention and all those things will change. That's what I believe.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it's the question of like, why would you containerize something? It's to keep consistency. It's to keep, a standard across the board. I guess this is just a highlight of a tool that then has the ability to maintain consistency, provide monitoring if something strays away, the ability to obviously containerize and then deploy a lot quicker. It's essentially just identifying, an open source, free to use, go for your life tool that looks at it from an ecosystems configuration point of view.
Correct. Thank you.
No, thank you. Was there any other questions?
Doesn't look like it. Is there anything you can demonstrate or showcase, or is it all secret squirrel?
It's all on my work machine, in which I'm on my personal machine. I guess if I was going to demonstrate anything, it would just be demonstrating all the screenshots that I showed you. I would be demonstrating what a JSON file could look like, in which, that could be, I think the IRAP assessed environment that I exported and I hit full and I let it, I think it took like a solid 18 odd hours to export. And I think it was 60,000 lines of PowerShell. So unless you want me to scroll through that one, I don't think we have the time to scroll through that one. But I think the idea is that if you're exporting 60,000 lines of PowerShell to then be able to push back in the time saving associated to manually configuring 60,000 equivalent lines of PowerShell. And once again, the reporting itself, the synchronization and whatnot, the screenshots I've showed are kind of the demo. And really what I would be demoing is here's how you export, here's how you import. And it'll just be me typing in the PowerShell codes that I've already advised.
That's fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, I guess duly noted, I should, fire up the old CDX tenant or something like that and just import some code and show the outcome. But I also wasn't aware of how long.
Even making an adverse change to configuration and seeing what happens in terms of remediation. So when the PowerShell runs and it does the check and it detects some drift in configuration, what happens and how does it kick in the gear. That'd be cool to see for a subsequent workshop or something. Or
yeah, I mean, part 2. We'll maybe I'll have to hit you up
Next
for
one?
2026. Yeah. No, look, I think it's one of those, if I focused heavily on that and not like, getting to the point where you want to have safe configuration and then exporting that, it's really focusing on a specific use of. To be completely honest, my 2 cents is that everybody should, go and play. Like, if you've got a tendency that obviously don't play in prod, but if you've got a tendency that you have access to, like, play development around, go and set up configuration, see what you can and can't export, kill the configuration and then import it back in. It's I learned through the general use of doing, and I strongly recommend that others should as well, because I feel like that's going to give you the most benefit, rather than me showing you what happens when I set something up.
Cool. Well, if you got any more slides, I'll take control again. Assuming that's worked. It has not. Oh wait.
It did.
We'll have your face on the screen a bit longer. Yeah. I jinxed it. Oh, wait, no.
It doesn't like you.
No, it's up. Oh, well, need to update that slide. But yeah, thanks again, Anto, for coming along. Well, being present, and presenting on this month's topic. Hope to see you in town soon, TM. I feel like we may have another opportunity to maybe all catch up together, whether it be at the user group or the podcast or the Discord server or just in general. Look forward to that. And for the rest of the attendees, thanks for coming. And we do hope to see you next month, which actually pretty soon because we're near the end of the month anyway. So in a couple of weeks' time, hopefully we'll have a topic all lined up for you. And if there's any burning topics or if you want to present at any point, let us know and we'll get that out to you. And it's obviously being recorded. So the recording, show notes and links and everything, slides and all that will be made available as soon as possible.